I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. The town of Walkerville would like to acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on today and respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We recognise the many generations of stewardship the Kaurna people have provided to this land and respect that their cultural heritage and beliefs are as important today as they were for their ancestors. Present at this meeting, we have all councillors. Staff in attendance, we have the Acting CEO, Scott Reardon, Group Manager, Assets and Infrastructure, James Kelly, Group Manager, Corporate Services, Vicky Purtle, Group Manager, Public Relations and Community Services, Sarah Spencer, and Council Secretariat, Danielle Edwards. We have no apologies. Do we have any leave of absences?
Yes, we do.
Alison?
I'm proposing a leave of absence from the 1st of August this year until the 30th of November this year. And I've also asked to move the meeting into confidence to discuss that.
What is the basis of confidence?
Personal reasons surrounding that.
Your Worship, I think, I don't think, I know it would be classified confidential under section 93B of the Act, in that it's a matter relating to a person either living or dead.
Okay.
Period following.
Do we have a motion?
We need to move the motion to move into confidence first. Yeah.
I'm happy to move that we move into
We need
confidence.
the proper wording of the motion.
Obviously, I just need to make sure the wording of the confidence is correct up on the resolution.
Yeah, so let's get that correct wording of the confidence motion.
Sorry.
I think
Sorry,
that's
James.
one. Have you got one up there?
Yes.
Yes, Your Worship, I drafted it earlier.
Oh, right, okay. So, pursuant to the Act, that everyone except the Acting Chief Executive Officer and Council Secretariat be asked to leave the meeting for the purposes of this matter.
Yeah, I'm happy with the wording.
Councillor, is there a seconder? Councillor Zeppel, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimously carried. Please ask.
question every time.
Okay, moving on to the confirmation of minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 16th of January 2023. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Allenson. Seconder, Councillor Vanstone. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, that is carried. Item 2.2, the special council meeting. I just have a question regarding this before we put it to the motion. How do we put on a public record the resolution made by flying minute?
Just bear with me, Council. Worship, sorry, which page are we looking at specifically?
So it's item 2.2.
17.
Your Worship, that what we do is that was. Can you pull up the? Have you got the agenda in front of you, by chance? I believe we did.
So
sorry, I was talking about on the screen.
the minutes just refer to it being passed by a flying minute.
Are you talking about the exact wording of that?
Also,
on the
how
flying minute?
does the public know what was?
So that will be uploaded onto the website. As a result, it will have the cross-reference of the CNC number, and there will be cross-reference with that particular item online.
So after what we verified the
Correct,
confirmation.
that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. And so do we get an opportunity to then confirm that flying minute?
The flying minute was confirmed via the flying minute with the members. If Your Worship, if you wish, we can definitely circulate that to elected members following tonight, so that elected members can are aware of exactly what was discussed and what was written, and then we'll put it up on the website if that's what you prefer.
Thank you.
So, just a question. So, am I just to understand this correctly? Because I'm not hugely supporting the flying minutes. I've never seen them before, to be honest. But so you're saying on when you go onto the council agendas and minutes section, how will that be described?
That will
You've
be-
got the February agenda, March, whatever.
Yep.
So how does it get this?
So once it's endorsed, once they're acknowledged, the flying minute will be tagged onto the minutes from that session. So it'll actually be more or less an addendum to those minutes.
To the minutes, but how about the report? What's
Yeah,
that
that's right,
related
because
to?
it was moving the report to go to
Moving the report, not the minutes, because
the letter for the planning submission.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm with you now.
So yeah, so,
So-
we're adding to know what we're endorsing.
So that will similarly that will go up after the special council meeting. As far as the agenda is concerned, will be tagged on there
Okay, within the agenda or
within the as an addendum to the agenda.
okay,
For
so
that.
it'll be within, but when the public click on
That
that
will be
one,
there
it'll
for
be
them to
within the
be
agenda.
correct.
Right, okay, okay. As long as it's one document, I thought it'd be confusing to have individual
No, I
documents.
agree.
Okay, any other questions regarding the special council meeting minutes? Is there a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Allenson. Second, thank you, Councillor Call. All those in favour? Thank you, that is carried unanimously. Would anyone have a declaration of interest to declare in relation to the meeting this evening? No. I'm not aware of any deputations, representations or presentations. No. Not aware of any petitions having been received. The Mayor's Diary. Take that as read. Are there any questions in relation to the diary? Is there a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Trotter. Seconder, Councillor Ripp. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Reports from elected members having attended training, conferences, seminars or external meetings. Now I have attended a Principal Members Forum on Friday and Saturday. I'm not sure, however, Acting CEO, if there's a format. So I did ask.
Yes, Your Worship, if you wish to provide a verbal briefing, you can do it in this section here, even though it is specified for non-council training sessions, but you're more than welcome to provide a briefing here. Alternatively, you can provide a written report into the next meeting or to elected members via email. It's at your discretion.
Okay, so is this in relation to training related to council or not related to council?
That says non-council related specific, but you can still provide it in here. I believe that non-council specific is actually carryover from the previous agenda format. So if you wish to get rid of that, you can provide that in here.
Okay. Well then, non-council specific, I also attended the Australian Institute of Company Directors course last week as well. Do you want the dates?
Yes, please. What was the title? Sorry, Mayor.
Australian Institute of Company Directors. Company Directors course. And that, the dates for that were 9th of February to the 15th of February. So I will just give a brief update on the Principal Members Forum. So it's a 2-day course, 51 mayors from across the state attended it. There was a welcome from the LGA President, Mayor Dean Johnson. We then did a session on effective leadership, looking at the leadership styles of the different mayors, which I think would be worthy of this council doing something similar to that, to understand each other's leadership styles and how you come to making decisions, whether you need more time, more detail, less detail, that sort of thing. Then the rest of the afternoon was spent on effective council meetings. So I did learn some things in that, and I'll probably share some things by email in terms of procedure going forward. Day 2 was about public speaking and media skills, and then effective leadership, the art of listening and influencing, and working with conflict and building resilience. So I'm very happy to talk to anyone more about any of that. It was a great course, but I also made lots of good connections with other mayors, including metropolitan and regional. So, thank you. Reports from elected members having attended a subsidiary board meeting. I think the only one that I'm aware of is our water. Councillor Vanstone, do you wish to give any update, or just take the minutes?
Oh, I think it's all in the minutes. One thing, the CEO, Terry Sutcliffe, is leaving, and so they're looking for a new CEO. Interview on Wednesday morning about that. One thing that concerns me about Era Water is the other council seems to be wanting a commitment for us to for $1 million over 5 years. I said I thought that was unlikely we'd be prepared to give that, but certainly other councils seem to be prepared to do that.
Okay.
So we're going to have to talk about all that at some
We
stage.
will. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Right, questions from the gallery. There were nil as at 12 o'clock today. Questions without notice. Do any members have any questions without notice? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Prior to Christmas, we had a meeting, I can't remember exactly when it was, early in December regarding the bowling and sports club redevelopment. We also had a meeting here with the, I think it was the presidents or representatives of the different clubs. I'm not sure whether the presidents, if they were all presidents or not. And there was to be a meeting then held later in December as well, and there was a staff member off sick, and that meeting didn't proceed. And since that meeting was cancelled, we're now 2 months further on than when that particular meeting was cancelled. And I'm getting smashed at the moment from questions from residents, from non-residents. In fact, I had someone message me last week telling me that in their words, and I don't quite know how they can actually do this, but their words were that the bowling club had pulled out. So, as we know, they're council facilities, so as we know that can't be incorrect. But these are the sorts of rooms and things that are festering in the community at the moment because they haven't been notified as to what's going on. And further to that is that I haven't been notified. I don't know anything that's going on, and here we are 2 months after our, well over 2 months, 2.5 months after our December meeting, and I'm unable to answer questions from the community regarding that area. So my simple question is, what's going on?
Thank you, Councillor Williams. One thing I will tell you is that I have, and before I ask the acting CEO to respond in more data, is that the president of the Walkerville Sports Club has contacted both the acting CEO and me to ask whether they will be able to play a full season of football at the Walkerville Oval this year. And the answer to that is that yes, they can, because basically we're not in a position to be building before the end of the football season, which is September, October this year. Other than that, I have been in my regular meetings with the acting CEO following up and discussing the status of the plans, and so I'll ask the acting CEO now to respond further.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Williams, with regards to the meeting in December, I'm not particularly sure which one you're speaking of, because there were no meetings in December scheduled for further discussion about the Oval. That may have just been a general briefing session, just to clarify on that particular point. But following the...
I think there was going to be a meeting with the architects.
Okay, I'm unaware, I don't recall that particular meeting, but...
No, there was a meeting that was going to be held to discuss an alternative.
Ah, yes.
There was a meeting that was going to be held.
So, Councillor Williams, on that, following the informal gathering where there were some further comments made about specific designs, the architects were engaged, well, the architects were to make some changes. That happened, obviously, there was the Christmas break in there as well. We received some information about the design late January, and we are now in receipt as of last week, further costings and updated etc., which will be presented to Council on Monday evening at a briefing session.
Well, actually, at that first meeting, and then the one that was cancelled, at that first meeting there was a discussion around some alternative, and I remember specifically that there was talk that there was an alternative that had been drafted that Council was going to see. I'm sure other members remember as well. And we haven't seen that, as I said, 2.5 months.
Not quite accurate, Councillor Williams. It's not. No. I appreciate where you're coming from, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But there has not been a alternate plan drafted for the Oval. What we're talking about, and what was talked about, was one of the original sketches done by our internal staff that was looking at options for potential value management for the design itself. So I have to reiterate, there has been no alternate design done for that site, except for the options that are currently on the table.
My understanding was those other sketches that had been done that we were going to see, and we clearly haven't. So
We'll bring that, I'll ask that comes to the meeting on Monday night. Councillor Menke.
Yes, so it's a little bit different. This is more just a matter of process. I suppose I'm referring to the item regarding the Santos tour down under, but it's more about just correspondence in general. Just a letter such, Santos said, the report basically states that all South Australian councils were received some correspondence. I was just wondering what the correspondence was and whether we could have that sort of information included as correspondence into the agenda.
Your Worship, absolutely, we can make sure such correspondence has come in to the agenda as part of the items in the future. This item was specifically, was this particular one an email outlining the process?
Yes, through the Mayor. That particular item was sent to us through state government commercial in confidence, so that's why it wasn't put into the agenda.
Commercial in confidence, but okay. So what date was that received?
So that one came in at the start of January.
I suppose my concern is that if we are where we are today, we'll talk more about it during the actual agenda item. However, it just, something like this I think is a council matter, and it's not administration. It's something that maybe we should be discussing as our appetite to host such an event, whether we would like to put an application in. I see this as an economic development opportunity for a lot of the main street of Walkerville. It's not. I just don't think it's a closed shop thing. It would have been nice if we could have discussed that. But again, we'll get into that later. It's just more the process of when the correspondence come in, like as you said, Sarah, that it is in confidence, I suppose, which I don't really understand, but they're called commercial in confidence, but how that we can include detail like that, and I don't know why it would be commercial in confidence, because it's only really asking for an expression of interest.
There's, Councillor, I think there was some content within the letter that I believe was why I was raised.
Can we black that out though?
Redact it.
Yeah.
We could do, but if you actually wish to have a proper discussion about this item outside of this agenda, I'm more than happy for this to be deferred and we can workshop it at a later date.
I think, well, what date did it have to be responded to? I don't think we're going to be in a position this time. But no, but again, so I don't want to lose direction on this. It was more about just in general. Maybe in future, if it is just commercial in confidence, we could retract everything and actually still put the...
Or it becomes a confidential item.
Well, no, if you black everything out, that way you can actually see that it was contact. There must be some information in there if we had
And we can redact
an opportunity
No,
to...
definitely point taken, Councillor, and
Yeah.
we'll consider that for the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? There are no questions on notice. Are there any motions without notice?
Well, I don't have a motion without notice, but I was just wondering, given Councillor Nemke's comments then about the tour down under, whether he wanted to put a motion without notice to that point that essentially any future communication around the tour down under be brought to the chamber.
Or any important matters rather than just the tour down under. It's completely up to you, Councillor Nemke.
You've got me on the spot.
Well, sorry,
no,
Rob.
James, I'm happy for you to raise a motion around that, if you've got some thoughts around it. Are you just talking in general about just correspondence in general?
Yeah,
Because
well,
that's where I was more at the, in general moving forward. I mean, I think with the tour down under, we're probably not even close to being in a position for that now. But if we could word something up that all future correspondence...
That would assist in this decision-making process, be submitted to council.
Yeah, anything relating to a report maybe should be included in the agenda.
yeah, look, and sorry to put you on the spot, but it only just occurred to me when you said that. I thought, well, really the best way for anything to ever happen is to have a motion. I thought, well, we've got a motion without notice. It's not a big one, it's a fairly straightforward one, so you've got the opportunity now
Yeah, I
to
think
put it, which
then
I'm happy to
put in there that all correspondence relating to a report item.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Nemke, would it,
An agenda item, I should say.
all correspondence relating to, all correspondence that would assist in the decision-making process for an agenda item
Yeah.
be included in council agenda.
As long as it's connected to an agenda item, I'm happy. Yeah.
Okay, so who's moving that?
Or just have to, before you do that, would it have to be in confidence? If it's we're saying something's commercial in
Oh, that is...
That would be, Councillor Rip, that would be dependent on the nature of it.
Yeah.
That'd be
Okay,
determined
cool,
by the
that's
CEO.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, and I'll maybe put in there, including matters of confidence to be
I just think-
appropriately edited to still enable its inclusion or something.
Yeah.
Redacted, yes, redacted accordingly.
Being maybe BEIG.
Yeah.
Matters of confidence, I think, because anything that will be held in confidence will have to tick the specific boxes for section 90. I'm happy with that if you are, Councillor Nemke.
I'll move that. Thank you.
I'm happy to say.
Okay, all those in favour? Councillor Bainstone, in favour?
Yep.
Thank you. Carried unanimously. Okay, motions on notice, Councillor Ritt.
I'll keep it quick, so I'm mindful there are three. I read them out, but I hope people don't mind. So the first motion I put forward is that as part of the 2023 community-wide traffic survey, administration and the appointed traffic consultants obtain the views of residents as to whether or not eligible council-controlled roads within the township should become 40-kilometre zones. The reason I put this forward is during the election campaign and even after, I've had lots of feedback from residents about what should and shouldn't be done at certain intersections to address traffic, what should and shouldn't be done around schools. One of these points that's come up is obviously the need to control speed on our local roads. Speed is not the be-all and end-all, it's one part of the puzzle, including, as Councillor Amundsen is putting forward later, there's something else to address an issue at Ilford. This is one, I see speed as one piece of the puzzle, and I know, having had previous experience, that when you're trying to change a 40-kilometre thing, it is actually a long process. It's not a simple process. It needs ministerial intervention. You have to back it up with data, back it up showing you've got community support. And I believe unless the process is changed, it also needs a final tick-off from the State Minister. So this is just about collecting the data, giving people the opportunity to have their say. Obviously, you'll have some people saying, oh, I want 40Ks, and you'll have some people saying, I don't want it. But at the end of the day, until we have reliable data and we've actually gone out and surveyed our community in a wide approach, and administration did make me aware as well that obviously with the community-wide traffic survey, it makes sense then to probably include that as part of it. You could go out separately on the 40K on its own, but I just thought, well, if you're going to be doing that, you sort of kill two birds with one stone and consult with this together. So that's, I'll leave it there, my speech, but
okay, so thank you, Councillor Rick, for moving that. Councillor Zeppeli, you seconding this?
No, just a correction, that's 40 kilometres an hour zone, not the 40 kilometre
Yes,
zone.
Councillor Rick, you have that.
fine, yeah.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Williams, thank you. Would anyone like to speak to the motion?
Can I ask a
Councillor
question?
Nettie.
Yeah, sorry, when you say eligible council-controlled roads, what?
Yeah, so there are, oh, sorry.
No, Councillor Rick.
Sorry.
I'll respond accordingly if you like. So, and the group manager can back me up or correct me if I'm wrong, but eligible roads, they need to be, one of the key criteria is that they need to be bounded by arterial roads. State government and did run arterial roads. So that places like Medindi, Gilberton and Walkerville to a certain extent can be accommodated. We run into issues with Vale Park because of the arterial boundary that goes into the next council jurisdiction. So we need to look at reviewing all of those, what could be applied to specific streets in certain locations, and if that would be applicable to go through the formal process.
Yeah, so how does that go with, say, Walkerville Terrace onto Harris, what's it going to?
Onto Harrison.
So it goes up to, through your worship. I'm not familiar with the study particular to Walkerville Terrace as far as, because it is a built up pedestrian area, so there may be other criteria. But as Councillor Ripp has alluded to, a 40k an hour study is its own beast in the sense, so not only eligible roads, but traffic data, speeds, things like that. So particularly if we're looking to do this across the board, it's just key to say eligible roads.
Yeah, I'm not particularly against it, I was just wondering, given that we're not going from arterial to arterial, because it's kind of like changing the road name, but it's a continual.
And these are all the things that will come out in the traffic study from the traffic engineers.
And I was just wondering whether, Councillor, if you'd consider, as part of 23 community-wide traffic survey. Okay, so you're not looking to survey residents to find whether they're appetite for 40-kilometre-hour zone, or are you just talking about?
Oh, you'd be
Residents have the opportunity to
I was
provide.
wondering, will we make sure that we break it into suburbs as well? Because some suburbs, as you said, Vale Park might not be eligible anyway, but I thought different suburbs might have different appetites. I think I just dawdle around at 30 kilometres an hour everywhere anyway, so it wouldn't bother me not one bit. But
I'm assuming all residents would get a copy of this.
Through your worship, yes, the transport study will include a mail out to all ratepayers.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak to the motion or have any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick question to Councillor Ribb. Are you aware of any other councils that have successfully implemented this or tried to?
Can I comment through the chair to
Yes.
answer that? Yeah, through your worship. Yes, we did this at Prospect. It was a long process. We went out and got surveys, survey people. It took quite a while. That's why I wanted to get it in now to sort of kickstart it and to put this on the record, because the later you do it, it's very, very difficult to get it done. It took us a few years to do it. So I think 2 or 3, I think. So it's not, and you do need points, and they will, before the minister will tick off on a final decision, they want to see that everything is done properly, and if it's not, then you start again. So it's important that it's thorough, the process is thorough and it's done properly.
Your Worship, Councillor, just picking up on Councillor Nenke's point, would you consider, so roads within the township should become 40k per hour zones for each respective suburb?
Yeah.
So that encapsulates data specifically for Medindi, Gilberton, etc.
Happy?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get my head around a little bit from when you said arterial to arterial.
Yeah, we've been trying to with the.
I'm just grappling with that at the moment because I'm just thinking there's a lot of roads that don't go from arterial to
the
arterial, so it's almost
consultants
Yeah,
tried to explain it to us at length the other day.
Yeah, through your worship. So getting back to the Walkerville Terrace example, because that's a high pedestrian activity area, it's a little different to a standard local street. So that's assessed and put in front of the minister, and they will look at a whole number of factors. But generally, looking at it at a large scale, they will look at major arterial roads, particularly 60k an hour roads coming down into local streets. So, for example, Stephen Terrace into Gilberton, Dindy was mentioned. So, yeah, it is a general rule of thumb that the minister will look at. Where is that street or area in the hierarchy of surrounding roads?
So again, I'll say Smith Street coming down the hill, down to Walkerville Terrace, these aren't, it's from an arterial down, so
essentially.
I'm just trying to see where the gain will be in all this work. If that's the answer, we might be.
And through your worship, I think.
I'm sorry, Stephen, I'm not against it.
No, you're okay. Fair.
I'm just trying to think about
Plenty
where
of
the
roads
actual
in
gain. I
Prospect
mean, I'm
K
thinking
40.
Unley's got 40 kilometres through it, but I actually thought that was local streets pretty well, was it not? Or
through your worship, we'd have to check the boundaries, and like I said, each project is different. But when you're looking to do 40k an hour zones across suburbs, then generally they're looking at start and end points as far as how people are travelling through those suburbs. So it's a lot of work. Yeah. And through your worship, I guess it is something that it's just the initial testing the market, testing the community, so to speak, to see if it's worth exploring, because there's a whole body of work that would need to be done first.
is there some initial work to understand costs and the likelihood of
through your worship
defining it a bit clearer?
Yeah, so we do have stage 1 of the survey is an issues and opportunities survey, so collecting all issues and opportunities. And then stage 2, which is planned for next financial year, will be an action plan which will include costings, timeframes, those sorts of things, and that just doesn't cover speeding. It would cover cycling, walking, all sorts of.
So the opportunities part phase 1 will come back to council.
Yes, through your worship. Yes.
Okay.
If I can just mission the worship, just to add an additional point to Councillor Nenke's comments.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to factor in as well is, so with Prospect, and each council area is different, but roads that interfere with major sort of state infrastructure, so say for example Galway Avenue in Prospect had to remain 50 because it interrupted like a major public transport thoroughfare. So even though the council pretty much run the road, because the state government run the public, like the bus through there, that was one that they was then ineligible to be changed to 40, so that remained 50. The bulk of the other roads changed, so really you just need to look at it all thoroughly, and it'll all be brought back to us along the way, I assume.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. If I could just add something to that, because I've been through a process like this on a number of occasions. I always found something like this item was very useful when it went through strategic planning, which we don't have the committee anymore, and there may be a possibility to put something like this through the sustainability committee after it's sorted tonight, because what that enabled the councillors that were on that committee to do was to drill down on it and really focus on that particular item, because as we did in the last term, we kept, if you remember correctly, acting CEO, we kept the agendas as small as we could, so we would only do like 1 or 2 items per agenda and spend plenty of time on it.
Mm-hmm.
And things like the traffic studies is something that, because it has such a big impact on the township strategically, it's important that we're really across it. And I'm not always certain that that when you get an agenda on a Thursday night, that you've actually necessarily had had enough time to go through and understand it fully. Where if another committee has considered it prior to the meeting, generally all of those members are completely over it from that, and then they get another look at it again at the meeting once they hear from everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps and assists in decision making. I know it has for me in the past. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williams. And Councillor Williams, are you happy with the amendment to this motion as it stands as a seconder?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Can I speak again?
Yes,
we
you
finish
can.
with
Of course,
questions. I don't know if
Councillor
we
Mansell.
finished with questions or not. Yeah.
No, go for it.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Rudd. I must say I'm opposed to this.
No trouble.
I'm not aware of any demand, at least in Medindi, for a 40k speed limit. In my experience, most people drive at a reasonable speed in Medindi. You'll get the occasional exception, but I don't think it would matter what the speed limit was. They'll just ignore it. Pretty well. I don't think 40k speed limits are, well, rarely if ever enforced too, so I don't think people take a lot of notice of them. So for those reasons, I'm against it.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you. I agree. Most people in Medindi, when I talked about 40 kilometres an hour, were against it, but in other suburbs, people were in favour of it. And having lived in Unley, they do enforce it in Unley. Anyone else?
Just pick up on a point, because the more I listen to this debate, it's a constructive thing about the Galway Avenue example. I think the main issues of speed is probably on those roads that actually are bus routes, like Walkerville Terrace, that Harris Road, etc. So if we can't change them, then some of the back streets are going to be impacted by this.
We won't know which roads can be changed at this point. That's the thing, you've got to do the groundwork and have those conversations.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm just like the way. I'm sorry, Stephen. I'm
That's
maybe
all right.
thinking the other way. Sorry.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Okay, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Councillor Rick,
Sorry,
second
can
motion.
we do a division?
Call a division?
on that one,
Sure. All
please?
those in favour?
Can you just stand?
So what's the...
It's a division, was
This
called.
is recording who votes in favour and who votes against.
So if you're in favour, stand, yeah. Yeah, if you're in favour, Mark, yeah.
You don't have to vote the same way
It's up
as
to
you
you.
voted originally. You don't wish to.
It's a fresh vote.
Oh, we've just got.
Yeah, against, Councillor Anderson. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, councillors.
Councillor Rick.
All right, motion 13.2 that the administration presents a report to the April council meeting on what options are available to change our hard waste collection system from an at-call system to an annual collection for the township. It would be advantageous as part of this report to have conversations with East Waste along with providing a cost-benefit analysis of both systems of collection. So this motion is about bringing a report. We're not saying that it's going to change. We're wanting a report to come back to look at cost-benefit analysis of both systems. A lot of people will probably remember about, I would say for the bulk of the councils in the area, 8 to 10 years ago, the bulk of the councils in the state were on an annual collection where the community would, I guess, know exactly when the hard waste is being collected. They'd put all their gear out. People would go around like a bit of a community sort of event. They'd pick up off each other. That they knew exactly when that waste was due to be collected, and then the council would come, or East Waste or council would come and collect what was left over. All of a sudden, I think, from my memory, serves me correctly, because I was on West Torrens Council at the time, there were a few obviously residents that were complaining they don't like the rubbish out for a few days, and then a lot of the councils started moving to an at-call system instead of the annual collection. I've had feedback over various councils that I've served on that some people actually really like the community feel of the annual collection, in the sense that it was environmentally good because the trucks would only be on the road picking it all up at a particular point. Community would pick up off each other, so it's less waste going to landfill, and you'd be able to, it's community feel, you'd pick up off each other. So I think it'd be great for us to get actually have conversation with East Waste, have a report that comes back that looks at, well, now we've had these type of systems in place for a while, what's the best system to go with long term, you know, and actually have a serious look at it. And that could be another thing, as Councillor Williams was saying, that you could look at further through the Sustainability Committee as well. It's all related to the environment and also financial. We had a report, when I was on West Torrens, we did an at-call system trial for 12 months. It ended up staying as a permanent system, but I remember vividly some of the staff at the time actually said to me, well, actually, it'd be cheaper if we just picked up annually, because we'd know exactly when the trucks were needed, we'd know when the resources were needed, the community would pick up probably a quarter to half of the stuff and we'd pick up the rest. Obviously, there are benefits to an at-call system. There's flexibility to the resident to say when they want that pickup to occur, but I do think it'll be advantageous to actually look at this more.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to this motion? I think we need a seconder first. Thank you, Councillor Allison. Councillor Trotter, question.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wondered, do we have any data on previously that this was something that was, why did we change, I guess is what I'm asking.
Through Your Worship, we've had some initial high-level discussions with East Waste over the past couple of days. We haven't collected the data, but some of the feedback from East Waste was that councils were moving to the at-call service because it provided a better service standard. So, a couple of examples: if someone's moving home and they need it the next week or the next couple of weeks, and also the logistics of doing one big collection rather than smaller collections. But as far as data pre and post and how the at-call service is performing, that's something we probably have to take on notice and bring back to a future meeting.
And so has anyone actually requested, like have you seen a lot of people requesting this?
Through Your Worship, generally the at-call service seems to function fairly well. We'd have to talk to East Waste Customer Service team who deal with a lot of the day-to-day requests. However, the requests that are coming to council with the at-call hard waste service seem to be satisfactory.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. This may answer Councillor Trotter's question a little more as well, because I can remember when we changed from the once a year to, I was on council at that time when we changed, and a lot of the complaints we were getting at the time, the reason why I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, that we changed was because of the amount of, for the want of a better term, crap that was ended up being spread all over the streets. So it's fine, and I agree with what Councillor says, that it may well be better for the sustainability, but the complaints that we got because people would come along and take stuff, a lot of the times it may have been to rejuvenate the stuff for a business, a treasure type thing, which I know they do with trailers. But then they would leave stuff all over the place, and I know if there were TVs or hard rubbish or different stuff out, electronic stuff, whether the stuff should have been put out or shouldn't be, it would get smashed and they'd take the copper wire and stuff out of there, and you'd be left with glass on the footpath. That's my memory of one of the reasons why we changed.
Councillor Ripper, I have a question about, do we need to limit it to the annual collection, which is in the motion, because it could be 1 month, 6 monthly or something like that. So I don't, rather than limit it in the motion.
I'm happy for any changes to this, and I do remember one elected member when we were talking about this post the session said, well, you could even look at suburb by suburb as well. So I'm happy for, if anyone wants to amend it, I'm more than happy. I just want to get the conversation on the table and at least have the discussion. So I'm very happy to have a look at whatever amendments posed.
I think suburb by suburb would be.
Yeah, to give us the most options.
Well, I'm happy. Yeah, very happy. Whatever you think. If you'd like to put something forward, more than happy to consider it. You could almost put or suburb by suburb or an alternative suggestion. I mean, I'm happy. I just want to get this because I think it just all these changes from councils has happened too quickly, and it's like it was. My feeling at the time was it's very reactionary, and everyone just followed. And it's like, well, actually, are we getting the best value?
Councillor, collection system from an at-call system to a alternate collection system for
Yeah.
township
Yeah.
or suburb by suburb.
You happy with that?
Yep, gets the conversation
Councillor
going.
Allenson, seconder, yes. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Linky?
Yes, and I think it's great that Councillor Ripp's putting motions up, I really do. I think it's a good thing for elected members to do. And I don't want to be knocking everything you do either, but I think I'll still support it because it's about a report. It's not any further action other than that. But what I would like to know, I mean, the world has changed a little with marketplace and Gumtree, etc. And probably for my personal, I like flexibility. Like people change rooms and end up having a cupboard you got to put out or whatever. You don't want to be holding on to that for too long. So I like the flexibility we have in an on-call system. But I'm happy to read the report. But what I am wondering whether within the your administration's research for the report, whether they can contact other councils that actually have this system in place to also find out about number of customer requests received relating to, or maybe it's not even a customer request, but maybe just general inquiries about, can we have something picked up? I mean, it's obviously, it'd be interesting. They might not have a pure statistic on it, because if it doesn't meet the definition of that customer request per se, but they might just say, people, the call centres might actually have a gut feel that they receive, quite a few calls about people just asking, can I have something picked up this, in 2 weeks' time, or what's your policy on this? Because if they are receiving those calls, I think that shows that people generally like a bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
Your Worship, Councillor Nanki, would you be happy with just the ERA councils, or would you like us to extend it a little bit further?
ERA and West councils, how many councils actually do it? That's probably the question.
The one
Maybe
pick
the
up.
ones that do it, maybe we should be
Yeah.
contacting.
You need to find someone that's done this at a single
I don't know if the ERA ones, not the St Peter's use, I'm not sure if it's a rule or not.
At Claw.
Maybe ask more St Peter's, because they were doing it not that long ago, maybe a potential question as to why they changed and have they seen any benefits in changing?
Through your Worship, we have Lord Payne Council was mentioned by East West as one who has moved because the twice a year collection wasn't deemed satisfactory. So that's just one example. But because of that rigidness of having those set dates across the year. So.
And through your Worship, I believe, or you'd have to check, because initially when this was put up, some councils along the way, your Worship, have also gone with like a mixture of one annual and one at call. So there would be variations across the state, I believe, as well.
Okay, I think Council Secretariat has been amending the motion, so we'll just need to look at that. Councillor Ripp, are you happy with that motion?
So through the chair, the amendment that I've made here is I've just included and other councils, conversations with Eastways and other councils.
Yeah, I would say along with providing cost benefit analysis and just cut off of both systems of collection, because we might find that
There's more than two.
correct. So you might find it'd be great to have an annual and an at call, so it could be quite a variation. I'm trying to turn your collection. Would you just say alternative collection system and just keep it at that? Or could you? What do you think? Because an alternative could just be there's an alternative put forward. It could be any alternative.
Which can be a hybrid of.
Whatever option.
I use an alternate system. Which part do you want to delete? Sorry.
Oh, for the township or suburb by suburb, because an alternative system could be.
Catch-all, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, it would be. I think that will cover it enough people.
Okay, Councillor Allenson, are you happy with that amended motion? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion or have questions? Okay, we'll vote on that, please. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item 13.3, Councillor Ripp.
Yep, that the Town of Walkerville the Town of Walkerville meeting procedures be updated by the April Council meeting for agenda item public question time to actually allow for members of the public attending council meetings to ask questions without notice. point 2 that the Town of Walkerville create or update guidelines regarding public question time and questions without notice to outline how questions will be dealt with. These guidelines will be presented to the March Council meeting for approval ahead of the April Council meeting implementation. Obviously, for me, I've been involved in 3 councils, get variations of this, but I think, and clearly we know that the public, a few members of the public will watch our meetings, but no one comes in person. This is a way of trying to get some interaction with the public, and hopefully over a couple of years get some people coming to, having the confidence to come to council, seeing what a meeting's all about and feeling comfortable asking questions. Not that many at Prospect used to come originally. When we added the public question time in, we found over time we used to get quite a variation of people coming and asking questions. It was obviously publicised and promoted by the administration that members of the public are entitled to come and actually have their questions asked, and we got some pretty positive engagement about it. I actually got a call from one of the former councillors I served with to say that at one of the recent meetings I had about 8 to 10 members of the public turn up to ask questions. And I thought, well, there you go, it's kicking on, and it's not going to work everywhere. Obviously, we are a smaller boutique council. This might mean that no one comes, but we don't know unless we put it out there. And I don't want to see sort of, if I can say this, I don't want to see people restricted to just putting the questions formally on notice, because that I think can be a barrier. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Are you seconding Councillor Williams?
Yeah, I'd be happy to second that motion. I think it's a really good one from Councillor Ritt. For a period of time, I believe probably our question time from the community has been perhaps too structured, and I actually wish I'd afforded it, to be perfectly honest, because they should be able to have an option where they may write in a question, which ideally is great because administration then may well be able to answer straight away. But we shouldn't be so structured that we can't have people that pay our allowances and the staff's wages that are restricted from being able to come in to a gallery and ask whatever question they'd like to ask. So I actually think it's a great motion on behalf of Councillor Ritt. The only thing I would like to add, given that I'm assuming with both of these you're talking about just the public question time, I just wanted to make sure that there was no confusion in point 2, where you have questions without notice. I'm assuming you mean questions without notice
in public question time
from the public.
Yes, for public question time. Yeah.
If he would allow me to, I would only like to, after questions without notice, add the words from the public. Because the reason I wanted to create that distinction is because we also have questions without notice as part of our own
happy with that.
Meeting procedures that have their own sets of rules. So.
Happy with that.
Your Worship, administration is very happy with this motion. As Councillor Williams said, questions from the gallery have been quite structured over the last X amount of years, and this does allow for flexibility. So a lot of councils actually have this process in play. Up to about 30 minutes, I believe it is, for public questions.
And you can always extend it if you get a whole heap of people coming to simply move a motion.
I'm very happy with this motion, but I have a question, like what are the pros and cons regarding the question without notice will be dealt with?
I'm happy to answer, but I'll just formally permission. Thanks, Your Worship. Pros and cons to it, and this is where the guidelines that come to us before it gets implemented, the guidelines that come to us in March before the implementations in April is really important, because the guidelines set out that if someone comes to ask a question to try and defame or defame another council or defame a council staff member or get aggressive, those guidelines will strictly say that question is out of order, thank you, please sit down. If they're going to use it to come and be defamatory, which we only, in all the questions we had, we only had one try to be difficult, and they were just shut down straight away by the chair because the guidelines are very, very strict, very clear. Having said that, we might get no one come, but at least people are open, and as councillors we can say when people contact us, well, have you thought about coming to council and asking that? Have you thought about, and at least it's another avenue where people feel, okay, Walkerville cares, listens. I think it's, the pros far outweigh the cons, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it does fall to the presiding member to accept the question or not. And so, as part of this review, I would also ask that all questions on notice and without notice came through to me, so I can decide whether or not they are accepted or not. And also, we should consider putting in a time limit or a number of questions on notice that we would accept on any one night.
Yeah.
So we don't have 20 or something.
But if-
and a time frame for
So
people.
there is
Correct.
still 3 minutes time for each question?
Prospects guidelines, just from memory, you'll have to,
Time.
sorry, I think it was either 15 or 30 minutes, and it's limited to 3 minutes per person. So if someone asks a question, but that 3 minutes wasn't, so then the staff would answer for 3 minutes and then they killed off. They have up to 3 minutes to ask. But, you know, when we get the guidelines in March, that's our opportunity to actually knock that out further. We'll get the formal guidelines from staff, how they want to go with it, and we can say, yes, we like this point, no, we don't like it, we want this expanded. But that once you embed those guidelines, then that's why I've set it out as March, April.
Can I just ask a question, Your Worship?
Yes.
Is it proposed that members of the public can only ask one question?
No, so it's, beg your pardon, through the worship. It depends how the guidelines come back. But no, they can ask, they've got up to 3 minutes to ask questions, and it's, so they want to ask a question, the staff come back. The difficulty for, I guess, the presiding member is just to keep a rough guide of time. Former Mayor Lachlan used to have a stopwatch going. I mean, we can note all that in the guidelines, but no, they could ask 1, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Usually 3 minutes are pretty limited, I think.
I'm aware of other councils limiting it to a maximum of 2 questions.
Can do that. Yep.
So this motion then is to bring a draft guideline
To March
back
and then implement
to
the thing in
next council
April.
meeting.
So point 2
Does it
develops.
say
The guidelines come to us in the March meeting ahead of the April implementation. So we knock the guidelines out in March.
Through the chair, change this to create draft guidelines.
Yes, because it's not clear to me that is coming back to the council
Yeah.
to review it and
Correct draft. Any questions from the public? These will be presented to the March. Yeah, you can say then these draft guidelines will be presented to the March council meeting for council's consideration ahead of the April council meeting implementation.
Expected implementation?
Expected implementation, if you want. So then that way, it's clear that we need to approve the guidelines before it's implemented. If that's what you mean.
So, but do we then need to go out to consultation on it? So will it be able to be implemented in April?
No, Your Worship, they raised that point, it would need to go to consultation. Minimum consultation would be 21 days, so it could come back in if, on the basis that there was little feedback received and the administration were able to compile the report accordingly, we should be able to bring it back in April.
So then to
could
implement
we
for May, to May start. What would be the starting?
I would add, the draft guidelines will be presented in March council meeting for council's consideration, and return by the May meeting for council's expected implementation.
So you need to change point 1 where it says April, doesn't it?
So I'm not sure what item 1 is adding, as opposed to with item 2 there. Because doesn't item 2 ask for the draft guidelines to be updated and brought back to council? Or is it just setting the scene?
Well, setting the scene that you're going to implement this, but point 2 is the guidelines come to us, and point 1 was implementation date. But that implementation, so obviously we want this to happen. Well, you could say that we'll just check with the acting CEO whether that's acceptable.
I think that's acceptable. I think you're right, Your Worship. Point 1 sets the scene for what,
Correct.
particularly with regards to the procedure itself, and then outlines the requirements for return and assessment.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, on reading again, the only thing that I would change is probably that last line, because I think that for council's expected implementation is preempting, that council will implement it.
And
I think we just end it return by the May 2023 council meeting,
Fine.
rather than preempting a decision, which I think that last line does.
Councillor Rick, are you happy?
I'm just going to read them both in
Yeah, I
full.
think we'll read
The
them.
town of Walkerville by May.
2023 at the top.
Yeah.
Not got 2023 at the top.
A 2023, yeah. Read out, yeah.
Okay, are you happy with that motion now as it
Yep.
has been drafted, councillor Williams? Anyone else? Councillor Nicky?
I'll just add that, Councillor Rick, I've been opposed to your previous two motions, but I'm quite supportive of this. Just for the record.
That's all right.
And so-
1-2 win loss.
I haven't seen his vote yet.
Okay.
Listen to me.
Right, let's vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously.
That's good.
Councillor Allenson?
No worries, I won't hold us up too much, there's been a few of these. So this one is very similar to the motion proposed by Councillor Kaur last council meeting, I believe, on Harris Road. I've just spoken to a couple of residents on Ilford Street at Vale Park, just about the safety of the road and the vehicles travelling along there. So yeah, it's a bit of a speedway and thoroughfare that goes all the way through from Main Road to Paris, which are two really quite main roads through there, and it is a downhill slope with minimal traffic calming. Things that have been implemented there that I can see, which is pretty much zero. So just a survey in relation to what kind of data we can collect along there, and if it is indeed a problem, this data can support that and go from there.
Thank you. Is there a second of the motion? Councillor Kaur, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion or have any questions?
I'd just like to speak to it and say very supportive of it, and residents have raised these type of issues with myself as well, and supportive of getting that data and looking at it definitely.
Councillor Allenson, sorry to interrupt your worship. Anywhere specific on Ilford that you're considering, or are we talking about the entire street?
Permission from the chair. Yeah, so particularly at the top end, which I've mentioned to yourself around Hamilton, the intersection of Hamilton and Ilford. You've given me a bit of an undertaking to look at the foliage around that area as well for safety coming out from Hamilton. And because that is straight from a 60k road into the 50k going downhill, it's probably going to be up towards that end. But I would say it'd be healthy to look at not just up that end, but throughout the whole area. I'm not sure how you conduct your traffic surveys.
Through your worship, yeah, so we can, over a large stretch between North East Road and Harris, we'll likely have to stretch out a couple of counters, so probably 2 or 3.
Yep.
We can definitely place one up at Hamilton Street and Ilford as to capture vehicles coming off of North East Road, and then we'll space out a couple of more counters to get that. The challenge is there's a number of connecting streets between that portion of Ilford Street, but I think if we can say at the top end near Hamilton and up to Harris Road, just defines it a little better for us, so we can collect the necessary data.
Okay, hold on. Councillor Allenson, are you happy with this amended motion? And Councillor Kaur, are you happy with the amended motion as it stands?
Yes.
Okay, so Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. I don't have any problem with that motion. We'll just make the point, though, that it could well open a can of worms, because if the issue is turning off North East Road onto a street that's going downhill, you're going to have the same problem with Fife, Doreen and Milne as well. So I guess we wait and see the response from Ilford Street, and then decide further whether we may need to consider looking at the other 3 as well. I know when they turn off North East Road, they're turning on to into Clemsick or Port Adelaide Enfield rather than into Walkerville. But I guess if we identified a problem on Ilford, it'd be worth checking each of those streets.
And through your worship, yeah, the transport strategy as well. Hopefully, we get a lot of feedback from residents on all these streets, and if speeding's a common issue, it sort of circles back to our earlier discussion, about 40k an hour and things like that. But we can certainly initially just get some initial data for Ilford and present that back to council.
Would I be able to respond to that from council? Williams. I think particularly Ilford, because that connects to Harris and it's used as a cut through there. I don't think the others would be as critical because they're generally not going anywhere after school. But yeah, I guess that's why Ilford was identified. That was the one that was raised. None of the others were raised at the time.
Five does connect to Harris as well.
Five does, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it might have some roundabouts in it.
No, only one at Harris.
Just at Harris. Yeah.
Sorry, misspent youth.
Yeah, I guess coming downhill, it's not our council, is it?
That's the
Well,
main-
half, yeah, that's where those
Okay.
roads come.
Right, so where are we at here? Councillor Zeppel.
So, Councillor Allison, for clarity, do you want Vale Park actually written against Ilford Street? Because that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Because Vale Park, I don't think gets a mention anywhere. Just for clarity.
Thank you.
Councillor Core, you happy with that change? Okay, anyone else like to speak to the motion
No clarify, mention suburban.
or questions? Okay, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Okay, turning now to reports requiring decision of council, and that is to do with the appointment of presiding member to the Women of Walkerville Committee. So, we have two nominations for this position. One is Deputy Mayor Trotter, and the other is Councillor Core. So, I believe we are now doing a secret ballot to vote.
Your Worship, I'll call members up one at a time.
Sorry, Nancy, just before you do that, is there what's been the practice in the past? Do we get the opportunity to hear from people nominating, or what's the standard sort of practice been in the past?
Your Worship, in the past, processes have been varied on a number of occasions, but if members wish to hear from the elected members now prior to the vote, that's completely up to elected members if you feel it would add some benefit to the voting process.
Okay, so I'll...
Just ask a question quickly.
Councillor Napier?
Just, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, mate, I'm probably wrong, but should we be considering 14.3.1 prior to this, because...
I was just thinking
Yeah, ask the question.
that, yes, I was madly scanning through thinking, how are we adopting the terms of reference to this
Yeah,
committee
because
tonight?
if we don't decide, you know, if it's male, female, or, I think that's got a pretty big sum with it. At the moment, no male put his hand up.
So, Councillor Nenke, through your Worship, Her Worship raised this point with me previously. Under the terms of reference, you are required to have a presiding member for the committee following the appointment of the members to that committee. Council obviously are yet to consider the revised terms of reference and whether or not that committee member will be appointed as an additional person. So the rationale behind it is that as a matter of procedure, the presiding member be appointed, and at that point the terms of reference can be considered afterwards.
Okay, sure.
So this is appointing to the committee as it exists at the moment,
Yeah, exactly,
which is
correct.
the Women of Walkerville Committee.
And I'm not saying that people should speak, I just wanted to know what the practice was and should people get...
Would we like to suspend standing orders to hear from the two candidates?
For a minute.
Show of hands, please. Yep, okay, we'll do that. So,
Even if it's a
we'll
minute
do
each,
that
don't
for, I'm giving you 2.5 minutes each.
worry.
5 minutes. Okay, Councillor Core.
You can, I can read my notes.
Okay, Councillor Trotter.
Yeah.
I guess my...
Thank you.
Do I need to...
No, please come on.
As a presiding member, I think it's more to get practice, because as the deputy mayor, I'm hoping I don't have to support the mayor in taking a meeting, but for me it's all about spending some time getting some procedures in place and actually and I'm quite passionate about the change that we're about to see with this committee, and I think it's got some potential to really bring some focus to the community, which I'm really passionate about. But majority of the reason behind it is purely so I could get some experience in sharing. So
Okay, thank you, Councillor Core, would you like to speak?
Yeah, same here. Actually, I'm very much passionate about helping people, listening to the people. So I believe my community believes in me, so that I can do something for them. So I think this is a great opportunity for me to bring my community here and listen to them, and making some funds and having some events for them as well. Yeah, I think this is the right way to promote my own and other Australian people in the community as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Core. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, let's go.
Your worship.
Where's Anthony Green to do our analysis and all that, We'll be back after the break. Actually, the ABC doesn't have breaks.
Your worship, would you like to vote first, please?
It's the first time back.
Yeah.
Is this the first time ever?
It's the first time since.
Oh, yeah. I was confused. I'm glad you asked about the Walkerville, like the naming of it. But yes, then I was thinking it must be because of this is coming first, and then the other one changed over. Yeah. No, that's fine.
And so then there will be a need to appoint another person to this committee as well,
Which is what I
which
think.
I think the nomination will come out later, or we're doing it tonight.
No,
Well,
I can't remember.
no,
Sorry.
I don't think it's tonight. I think
I
they're
don't
only
think it is.
adopting
Yeah, so I think
and that will come out of that.
No, I think it's
Councillor Root?
Yeah, can I think so?
Yes. Yeah, good, thanks.
What about this electronic voting?
yeah, we are, yes.
This is where you posted the cameras or something?
Councillor Zep?
Yeah.
Get the happy children.
Just remind me that I'm missing Survivor tonight.
One of us will get the torch knocked
And
out.
we'll probably come out in favour of that call, but no council's ever done it.
Message your boys and stuff.
Councillor Torres?
Did they give you an answer?
It was political. Yeah. Honestly, the rest of
Is
the
that
stuff,
the
like,
torch?
this game costs us so much more, and I'm just like, well, I think that's...
You need to take a photo of the ballot box.
Yeah, that's right, and get the family,
It's actually, it's handed out.
Well, did we actually check, did you do the old scrutiny check that it was empty?
And you've appointed a scrutineer.
Yeah, point of scrutiny, yeah, that's it, yeah.
And we're gonna go down.
We shouldn't laugh at that, because remember years ago, it was the WA Senate, they had found all these missing votes, and the people in WA had to all go back and vote on the Senate again.
Yeah.
Do you want to extend?
Because there was a whole lot of voter
A
issues.
little bit further until
Councillor Williams?
the process is
I
finished?
mean, that's only a,
Or they're just
I
about
remember
to
it caused such a stir.
Yeah.
I thought people then would be going...
No, we're just going to extend standing orders if everyone's in favour of that.
Yes.
While we're doing the process, yes, another 5 minutes.
I'll do it 8:20.
Yes.
Councillor Trotter?
I'm not giving it too easy meeting.
Just like they said,
Sorry, I killed your 40-minute record tonight.
I knew it was going to be long, sharp.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
The other discussion.
1 vote for Councillor Core. 2 votes for Councillor Core. 1 vote for Councillor Trotter. 3 votes for Councillor Core. Vote for Councillor Trotter. Vote for Councillor Core. Vote for Councillor Trotter. Vote for Councillor Trotter. And vote for Councillor Trotter. Councillor Trotter, 5 votes to 4.
So we get to choose under the terms of the Women of Walkerville Committee. I don't know. What is the current terms of reference for that committee?
2 years, I believe it is, yes.
So it's 2 years.
Because we changed it.
But this is the old committee,
Yeah,
the current terms of reference.
The old committee, yes.
The old one's 2.
Your Worship, so terms of reference, it's basically a term as appointed by council or as determined by council as a general rule of thumb. I believe the change that was made in December of last year, though, was until the end of the council term, but for presiding members that...
I think the old one's 2 years, but actually this is really bad. You can't read the marker.
I'm just pulling up the one that's on your website.
Can't read through it.
No.
Like an OPSM test.
I can read.
Oh no! Oh, it's
Glasses
someone,
work.
yeah.
Did you read your?
Yep.
The presiding member will hold office for a term of 2 years.
Okay, so
Some
it's
of
2
it-
years. That's
some of
no
it's
choice.
really small.
So, do we have a mover?
Yep.
Councillor Allenson, seconded. Councillor Rick.
Yep.
Anyone else? Questions or would like to speak to the motion? Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 14.2, the Heritage Management Policy for consultation. So that has come back into the chamber. I've noted the change to Ghana Peoples now, which is used in the document. Does anyone would like to move that? Councillor Zeppel, thank you. Anyone to second it? Councillor Allenson, thank you. Would anyone like to speak to the motion or have any questions? Okay, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 14.3.1, review of the Women of Walkerville Committee terms of reference. So you will have seen in your pack the updated terms of reference, including changing the name of that committee to the Walkerville Community Committee. With updated terms of reference, you'll note that this also includes rescission of a prior council resolution to include male or female as a defined section in that policy. Given the change to the terms of reference and not being gender specific, we felt that we could remove that as a section of the policy or the terms of reference. So, would anyone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Core. Seconder, Councillor Allenson. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion or have any questions?
Yeah, I just have a question. I'm a little concerned that a lot of women may disappear if we make all these changes. Have you thought about this? How we can encourage women to remain and not get scared off?
It's an inclusive committee, and so but it's also to bring men into it as well as having women in it. And we think that there's plenty of people in the community that would be encouraged to join this committee. Councillor Cotter.
We also intend, as I believe, making the changes to bring younger women into the fold and be able to work within the community of all different ages. So not just a certain demographic, I guess, in age. It's really important that we engage the younger community to also be part of that activity of making opportunity for families to come to cost-effective events that we can support. Yeah.
Councillor Zeppel.
I'd speak in support of this because it's going to be more reflective of what the community actually is. The period of time where the Women of Walkerville, in its context of its time, if I understand it correctly, made a lot of sense for that time. But its time has been and gone, and we're now in this stage, and I think this is a good initiative.
Councillor
Pretty
Reid.
much echo the comments from Councillor Zippel and Councillor Trottis. I'll be in favour of it.
Okay. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 14.3.2, election of Greater Adelaide Region Organisations of Councils, GAROC, East Regional Grouping Representative. There have been 2 nominations from within the East Region of GAROC for this position. Councillor Don, whatever his name was, Palmer, Don Palmer, and Mayor Jan Claire Wisdom.
So is this a secretive ballot? Sorry.
So we will discuss
Yep.
how we will mark our ballot paper. So I actually think that we should put this meeting into confidence to discuss this, given that we are discussing people alive.
Yes, Your Worship. So we sought advice from the LGA on this process last year, and the advice was that specifically for the voting purposes, there is no provision within the Act that allows for us to go into confidence. But I agree, if the members wish to discuss the individual parties, you can move into confidence under Section 93B of the Act. Council Secretariat, perhaps just use the same confidentiality provision that was included for Councillor Allison's earlier motion. Leave of absence, sorry.
Yes. So do we have?
I will do that in the final minutes. Yeah.
Do we have a mover for that motion?
I'll have
Same words that were used for Councillor Alison. Thank you, Councillor Zeppel, and Councillor Rip seconds that. All those in favour? That's carried. You're okay with this. Okay.
How long were we in confidence for?
We're now until we come out.
Okay.
stand as putting the name of Councillor Don Palmer
Move that
for
way.
election to the East Regional Grouping of Members of Garrock. So, do I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Trotter, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Rip, thank you. Any further comments or discussions? All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously.
Your Worship, if we can just go through the process, please. If you can just put an X next to Councillor Palmer's name. Members, just for your reference. You fold that up, please, Your Worship. Just need Your Worship, just noting Town Walkerville submission. Thank you.
Okay, item 14.3.3, regarding an expression of interest for the 2024 Sandhurst Tour Down Under stage start or finish.
Can we move a suspension? Is that all right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's good to do. All those in favour?
Oh, just sorry, time.
Thank you. Yes, for 15 minutes.
Yep.
Yes, where are these?
40.
Okay. Sure. Do you want to kick off?
Oh, sure. Look, I know we're suspended now, standing orders. I can see there's pros and cons to this. For me, the pro is, as Councillor Linky was saying previously, showcase of businesses. It's a thriving thing. I've been involved in the past with Full Prospect. They're great. You've got those events. The township's buzzing. All great. The con to that is, why are council spending all this money on, say, the Tour Down Under when you can't fix my local stuff because Walkerville Over is going to consume all your money? You're telling us in one hand you don't have money because of Walkerville Over, but then you're spending money on an event. So I can actually see you're going to get you'll get negativity and you'll also get positivity. So we just got to, whatever decision we make, there will be, I think, members of the community that will kick up. So I look at this and go, is this the best? Trying to weigh it all up. Is this the best time to be spending that money when we're going to keep saying to our residents, oh, Walkerville Oval and Bowling Club's going to take up all our money, but then we're going to spend money on an event. Although in saying that, I want the event because it does showcase money, it brings money into the economy, but I just think we're probably in this stage, I'm leaning against it only because of the fact that we're going to be telling our community so much we don't have money with everything. So I just don't see how we can then go and spend money on an event when we're not going to be doing local things. And there'll be plenty of local things we're delaying. We're talking about delaying something to do with Levi or the talk about it. We're going to be reviewing projects and then we're going to spend 25 grand on an event. That doesn't sit well with me at the moment.
Councillor Trotter.
I agree with Stephen, Councillor Rip. I believe that we probably need to focus on some major projects that we've got coming up, and it won't look good to the community if we're actually spending funds on, we're not sending a clear signal to the community what we're here and engaging for.
I just think the costs outweigh the benefit. It's very expensive when you have to put it all in together. So I'm not in favour of it.
I think we had all the money and it wasn't all tied up into one project. You can justify it because nowhere else is missing out, but when people are missing out, I just think you're going to get a lot of anger.
There is talk about it being, they talk about the prospect version where it costs more than $150,000. Does administration have a view of how much an event would cost us if we...
Your Worship, we have discussed this in past. 2021, I believe, we considered, or there was a discussion about potentially having a street party. And from memory, I recall the costings associated with that were around $80,000 to $90,000 for a portion of Walkerville Terrace. So while it might not be $150,000, it will be a significant cost to council to host an event.
Pretty confident from memory prospects was up pushing up towards like 190. Because I know I got it in the media as well.
Yeah, when I spoke to former Mayor Lovewood, he mentioned 200,000.
Yeah, I think we told them to start winding some of that back. I mean, we got media attention for that as well, like not in the positive at the time.
when I brought this up earlier, it was more about just the process of this. So I don't think we're in a position now to have a crack at this. I suppose the one question is, do we get this invite every year? Do all councils get an opportunity? Or is this when they plan their routes, that it only comes up straight out feed?
Your Worship, Councillor Nanki, this is the first time that I believe we've received it.
Okay, so that's probably the way they design their race. Okay, I mean, I know Campbelltown's had it 3 or 4 times, so obviously they're close to the hills, good hill section, but yeah. So look, to me, I just would have liked to have been more organised with this, so if we came to council where I had a workshop around it, I think we could have maybe invited some local businesses in to sort of see their appetite, whether they're willing to contribute towards some of the initial costs. Obviously, street parties and whatnot would be something that we would have to sort of fund. But yeah, I mean, I just saw, you know, depending on the way the route would run, it would be fantastic. It was coming from the south and into, I mean, that big long straight down Walkerville Terrace from Gilberton, coming in and then having the finish line right in the heart of Walkerville would have been huge. I mean, just all your local businesses on a hot summer's night with, you know, a few wines and beers and whatnot, and the food, the showcase, you know, the various restaurants we got down here too. Walkerville Oval could have been set up with, you know, it wouldn't have to be all contained because Walkerville Oval was so close to our, I mean, I think we were really well set up for it, and maybe that would be a cost advantage to us too. So, I don't know, I just think we could have talked about this a little more and just not been so closed on it. I've never seen anything like this within Walkerville, and you know, to really get that vibrancy in Walkerville Terrace and to sort of promote what Walkerville Terrace could be. Maybe we could get future, you know, other businesses coming in and actually, you know, trying to get a bit more variety along the strip here too. So I think there could have been a huge, you know, there's opportunities, definite opportunities to go with it. But like I said, I don't think we're in a position now, which is a little bit disappointing. But
the only thing is, I don't know, when do we need to respond to the letter?
1st of March.
Oh, okay, you're close now.
yeah, so yeah, we're going to have a chance. So just, I suppose if we do get an invite like this again next year, it's again just being organised around that. And even I suppose once we establish this new committee, maybe we should be looking at what we want to be involved in strategically as well, driving forward. What, you know, do we have an appetite for bringing events to the township initially, and at what cost we'd be willing to put to it? Because then I suppose if something does like this happen, then we know that we've got the green light to start at least discussing the matter. And talking about costs before, as an elected member, I was reading through the operational budget. Maybe it was the capital, but the landscaping along Ascot Avenue is $70,000. I'd put that money to this in a heartbeat over landscaping. I know we've already approved it, but looking forward, I think the community would get more out of, I mean, especially our local businesses would get more out of this. I mean, I still don't really know what the landscaping is down there and what benefit any of the community is going to get from it. So that to me, you know, it's just really being mindful. Okay, we've got to be responsible for the money that we spend, but just being, you know, where do we want to direct it? We don't have an economic development sort of policy, you know, from my understanding. We don't really have any direction with that. We don't really work with our businesses as much as probably we should. And maybe this is, you know, these things just got me thinking, this report's got me thinking a little bit about maybe what we should be doing. But anyway, that's all. Like I said, I'm not actually moving anything to say let's go for it. I don't think we're in a position to do it. So anyway,
So another question, like, putting in the expression of interest, does that need to be accompanied by a cheque? Like, when do these amounts of money get to become payable?
Yeah, through the chair, I believe the process is that they would then assess the applications they get and then write to council, my understanding of whether they're successful or not.
And then you have to pay.
Yeah, and then that's when you would, because you put in your preference on which of those you prefer, they'd assess them and then come back with advice, which is when we would need to nominate them.
I think it'd be dangerous probably if you applied and then turned them down, because then they probably won't look at you seriously the next time. I think there's but I can see where you're going.
No, agreed. I think we need to be in a position to actually think, what event would we have? How much is that going to cost? Before we actually put our application in, because you wouldn't want to.
So if you're not going to bus it or something.
So.
And could we even fit an event in the town? What size are these? We need to be working with our neighbouring council to work together to have two it out under between 2 council districts.
You can't run the parades because they're here. They ain't enough.
You're probably looking at about 10,000 people that would attend for that part, and they depart reasonably quickly. But if it's a finish, it's more advantageous because later in the afternoon people more willing to hang around a bit.
Say this time round, okay, I hear what Councillor Nanki's saying. Well, obviously we've got to make a call and we missed out. Have we ever surveyed the community in any way, shape or form about what the appetite is for just events in general? Because then you can use some of that data to inform when things like this come. There's something, we've had conversations with our community, business people and all that. Otherwise, obviously with this one, it is what it is, but have we actually done that in the past?
Through you, Worship, Councillor, I believe we did as part of the proposed street party. I believe there was some communication done with business owners and residents within a specific location. I will have to clarify that.
Through the chair, yeah, that's correct. It was the proposed event was called Walkerville Wonder, and we did go out for consultation on that to see what the appetite was, because it was towards the end of COVID. So I'm more than happy to circulate
really
those after this session, so you can have a read to see what they are. And also we're looking at the community survey coming up, so that's going to cover a range of questions, and that will include events as well.
So it'll be like saying what's your, I'm not obviously, but just sort of checking in on residents' appetite for paying money towards hosting events, that type of.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be really good.
Yeah.
Data to get.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Interestingly, there is another one that we did surveys on regarding having community events there. It was in the Wesleyan Cemetery. Because we went out and got our biggest response to a survey we've ever done on the Wesleyan Cemetery. 660 odd people responded. And one of the questions within that survey was also around, would you be in favour of events being held there? And depending upon the event was a lot of the feedback that the community would be. So my thoughts on listening to everyone, I agree with everyone, but my question perhaps might be to Sarah is, with the things we've got listed there in option 2, do they actually give dates? Like what I'm looking at, and just bear with me here for a minute, the H where you've got the Women's UCI World Tour finish, that's $5,000. Do you know when that actually occurs?
Yeah, the weekday, weekend, yeah, good point.
Because what I'm thinking is, I'm assuming it's in January, is that right? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at what the document that they've sent through the chair. Yeah, and it says that they're looking at similar dates for January, but at the moment all they've got in there is just expressions of interest, so there's no dates in the document.
Well, the reason I ask that is when you look at an outlay like that, it's relatively minimal.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not there's an opportunity and whether the appetite on behalf of the elected members to contemplate having the Christmas fair or the fair, or look at the funds that we contribute towards the Christmas fair each year, because it used to be on Walkerville Oval and it moved up to Levi, whether there's an opportunity to move it back to Walkerville Oval, not necessarily have to be a Christmas fair, it might be a community fair, and try and have that happen at the same time as a $5,000 race finishing into Walkerville. I think that would give you the greatest opportunity to get bang for buck. 5,000 isn't a lot if you had an event that was going on Walkerville Oval anyway that we already fund. It may well be that we have an opportunity to include that cost in the funding that we do on Walkerville Oval. I'm not saying move it back for good from Levi to Walkerville Oval. However, one of the advantages of having it on Walkerville Oval too is that if it's during January and it's going to be hot weather and it's school holidays, you have the opportunity to start the event from 4 or 5 o'clock at night when people might be looking to purchase food, because you've got the lights. You've got the lights on Walkerville Oval. So they're just thoughts, and I think Councillor Nicky's quite right. Stuff like this coming back well in advance so that we're in a position to act. And if I was going to move a motion here, The only thing that I'll probably add to point one is that if we are writing back to them, that we also say that you know, more or less, not this year, however, don't forget us in future, because we'd like other opportunities. Because I think it's critical, if you look at that one that's going to cost $5,000, I think it's critical if that were to finish on a weekend and you had an opportunity to put something on the back of it to keep people in the township, I think $5,000 would be a reasonable amount to spend, particularly if you're able to cover it within a budget allowance that we already have. I'm not sure if there was costs for lighting at Levi when we've had the fair. I can't remember. There would have to be probably some, because people leave a bit late, whether it was things on stands, but if there's a cost involved with them.
Through the chair, I'm not sure if we've received quotes before, but in preparation with the events planner, the external events planner that we use, she had strategically chosen hours where it would be in daylight because of the issues that would be around lighting.
Yeah, so that's just a thought that I've had, is you get it back to Walkerville, we then create that economic development within Walkerville Terrace, because let's face it, there's no shops around Levi Caravan Park. So that's just my thought. But I think when we're considering our budget, which we're about to commence doing, that we should think within that about our events and whether the Christmas one is the right time to do it, whether it's the right location, because there's pros and cons, because you put it into January and everyone might be away on holidays. So
I'm just going to move to standing orders to be extended, suspension of standing orders, another till 9 o'clock. So sorry, Councillor Williams, continue.
No, well, I'd really pretty much finished. It was just saying we should consider, you know, perhaps dovetailing with, you know, with another event that we've already got, because it may not make a lot of difference to the cost of that event. But then it would be up to elected members to say, well, no, really, people want to have a Christmas event and have Santa there. But I think it's a decision we probably should make as part of the budget process.
Oh, sorry,
The trouble is, when you look at this sort of, and I can see exactly why, Councillor Williams, you're looking at all the options that are trying to make things work. The trouble you've got is, if you spent, say, $5,000 on that finish, but then Vale Park lost what they deemed to be, and say the Christmas fair, it's been there, it's working well, it was a huge amount of people went. I actually think then you've got an opportunity loss cost that you've taken the fair away, say, from there, and that will upset a lot of people. So I don't know how you put a value on that for $5,000, because obviously with the finish being $5,000, I get it, but I think you would have a lot of upset people in the community that the fair's moved, it's lost. And I wasn't here, obviously, when the fair was somewhere else, but I don't know how numbers are comparable and all that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and it, obviously both are.
You could argue because it was taken from Walkerville.
You could can't argue. It gets difficult.
Yeah, look, I don't know how we got involved in the Christmas fair. Well, I think just to focus on this is, I would only be going for this if it was actually finishing right in the centre of Walkerville anyhow. It's that's the hard way. I mean, Campbelltown have theirs finish on Merrittville, what's it called, Marymale Road or whatever, which is well and truly out of any sort of commercial area. It's they have marquees and whatnot, but I don't know how much, you know, what they really get out of that. And they've done it 3 or 4 times, so they obviously see some benefit from it, but I don't know why.
Finished on a park. There was
There's a reserve. There's an oval there and
Montacute Road.
Yeah, so I'm coming down Montacute Road, but there's no real. The local businesses wouldn't get any benefit out of it. So to me, it's really showcasing Walkerville. And, I mean, Sarah sits on that. What's it called? Propel and little things like this. I just think, you know, we should be, you know, the local businesses might actually, you know, be reasonably encouraged by this. We should have, you know, try and speak to them about that too, whether they see any value in, you know, what they might see. Would they be willing to even contribute towards it? You know, it's a great way to promote their own business. I mean, they'd probably make their money back just that night, I would assume. So, but anyway, look, that's all I had to say. I just think we just need to, the new committee, I would just like to, once the new committee does establish, that we maybe look at strategically whether we have an appetite for these sort of things and how we can actually get ourselves organised for it.
Okay. Councillor Zeppel, Corr and Vanstone, haven't heard from you. Anything to add to this discussion?
I like the idea, but I just don't think there are enough businesses on Walkerville Terrace to really justify spending anything like $100,000. That a lot of the business wouldn't get any benefit from it, but sure the pub would and the restaurants and things. But Prospect Road's a much better location from the point of view of a number of businesses.
No, right. Yeah, but to me, I suppose it was also trying to showcase. If we maybe encourage us to get a bit more diversity in business along Walkerville Terrace too, instead of just having, 3 pizza shops and whatnot. But we could. There's a few sort of consulting places that could become food establishments too. We're just trying to create what Walkerville Terrace could be in. I mean, I'm coming from a position where I've informally surveyed. I've got friends who always say to me, and they are friends, I'll say, but they're basically just saying, it would be great to have more vibrancy on Walkerville Terrace. So that's just where I'm coming from. I mean, to live close to something, people can still walk to Walkerville Terrace. Everything's such a tight community here that they can walk down and get a little bit more off Walkerville Terrace. But to have a night like that, I used to go to Unley Road, and that was huge. And Prospect, I think I went to the Prospect Road one too. But it was just, it's a great night. Lots of families come out. It's also about community too. It's a great way to keep everyone connected.
I can't stay paying for it.
Anyway.
Okay. We still have a suspension of standing orders, but are we ready to move to a motion? Someone would like to put a motion?
Look, I'm prepared to do it. I guess so that's suspension. I'm going to move that the council directs administration not to submit an expressive interest to host the 2024 Santos Tour Down Under stage.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Vanstone. Anyone like to speak to the motion?
I'd just like to ask Councillor Rick if he'd be prepared to add to that administration point which says about right to tour down under to express
possible interest for next year.
Possible future interest. So we're not committing to anything, it's just saying more or less keep us informed because not this year but maybe in the future.
And I think natural, I would hope that each year we would look at it too, but yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Councillor Vanstone,
Yeah.
happy with that amendment?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll vote on that. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. Okay, item 14.3.4, Grove Terrace Service Road Traffic Investigations. So, is there anyone to move this motion?
It just needs to be some amendments. I wouldn't mind the...
So we just need to have a motion on the table first. So,
Anyone need to make variation?
Councillor Allenson,
Yep.
would you like to talk to the motion? Or do we want the seconder first before we talk?
Well, I think, sorry, kind of just for a point of clarification, I think Councillor Allison was saying he wants to move a variation to that, is that right?
Your worship, you can move variation from this point if you wish it to.
Okay.
But we just need to see it.
I'd, if possible, to hear from James about the report.
Yep. So through your worship, as you can see in the report, all the entry and exit points were assessed for sightline constraints as per the previous notice of motion. You'll see overall that what I'm referred to as the pink shaded areas in the report are quite small in nature as far as where you do not want an obstruction above 1.1 metres high. There were a couple of sites that had conflicting signage that were within those zones, so we're looking to move some of those. There were also some or groups of vegetation that we're either looking to remove or keep well below the 1.5, and I think at 1.1. And I believe the report suggests ground covers and less dense vegetation. And I guess what was assessed was the stopping site distances entering and exiting. So upon entry, there are controls in place on the service road, so there are stop signs in each direction. But what sightlines were assessed, that once a vehicle has entered
Thank you. And I might just talk to that now. The majority of that I think is quite good. I think the report, which I've read and noted, and now spoken with residents, I think it just lacks a little bit of insight into those vehicles that travel on the service roads. And I got in my own car, which was a lower car, and when I'm into section 3, for an example, I'm not sure if everybody's read the report, but you can't see anything that is really going on in that stop sign, particularly of cars that are coming down a hill at 60 k's an hour. What you can't even see, because the bicycle lane's even closer, if a bicycle comes through there, you can't see, and it's going to be absolutely too late. Also, any right turning traffic that comes in, and again, intersection 3 as an example, you can't see them turning in. So if you go beyond the stop line, they're going to be halfway through road terrace, main traffic. By the time, if you stop and then they stop, then there's going to be other cars in the vicinity and they're doing a right turn. So I just find that the report has lacked a little bit of insight into that. I'm not calling for another report or a reanalysis of those findings at all, but from what I could see, and then the problem could be alleviated, is to put in a boundary, which would be my variation of a 15 metre radius from the gutters back, that there is no foliage and it's removed and it's just bark from that point. I believe that the aesthetic look will still be sufficient. A lot of it is bark anyway, but I just think it just gives that extra layer of safety, doesn't change the heights of the mounds, and so there still is that, I guess, that sound barrier, which is why they were all obviously implemented. So again, covering off, I think it overall is a good report, but it just lacked a little bit of insight into some other issues, which I think can be alleviated with having basically a no foliage zone for my idea was for 15 metres back from the gutters on either side, and within entrance 2 and 3, because they're really close together, just nothing on that one.
So what's the amendment? What do it change?
The wording.
So,
The wording.
yeah, it'd be some of the wording in relation to that. So, between site 2 and 3 to have no foliage at all, so it's
So you
an
need
extra
point
one.
E probably.
Site 2 and 3.
What about the lawns?
About the lawns. Oh, the lawns are fine, it's just anything that can grow up. So, yeah.
Talking about shrubberies.
Councillor Secretary,
Excluding lawns.
Isn't there also issues about we've got stopping, stop? That hasn't been addressed.
all vegetation, removal of all
Yeah, so
vegetation.
that's another issue.
Well, that includes lawn.
Because I've been.
Yeah, I think we want the lawn.
Foliage.
They say higher than 3 inches. or
Look,
something.
personally, I don't think there's a problem. I think as long as we keep it cut back, I know you've been
It's
speaking
not cut
to...
back, yeah.
I think it's fine. I use that thing all the time, and now the vegetation's been chopped, it's fine. My car's not a high car. I use it all the time.
I'm not sure if you were at intersection 3 with me yesterday where I couldn't see a thing, but yeah, I had particular issues yesterday with that. This is my thoughts from spending quite some time there.
Councillor Allenson, removal of all foliage between sites 2 and 3, 15 metres back from the curb, is that what you were saying?
And also 15 metres back from all other sites.
As obviously the type up's doing, I just have a question. This would be only on council owned land, not anything anything we're doing here, so we can't affect private. As long as people understand you cannot affect people's private property, that's the key bit.
Through the chair, just for clarification, removal of all foliage between sites 2 and 3, 15 metres back from the curb and all other.
So the 15 metres back is to all sites, so from the gutters back.
Should we
And,
say,
and I'm happy to seek advice on what people's thoughts are with a radius of a restriction. 15 metres is too far. I'm happy to discuss that.
Your worship, if I can defer to James.
Through your worship. So I guess the standards have been laid out in the report, and they are the pink shaded zones. That's the standards. As far as council's direction, as far as anything outside of that, it would be outside of those standards. But by all means, that's open for debate. But what's been presented is what would effectively stop or impact the required stopping distances to prevent a conflict. So anything more than that has potential other consequences. And having a figure of 15 without, I guess, having a survey or further details for each location, it's a difficult number to land on, just because the report didn't focus on that element. So that's sort of my commentary around that.
would you need?
So these reports actually look like they're the cars going into the service road as opposed to cars coming out of the service road.
Through your worship, so some are they're one way. So some sites are solely entry points, and then other sites are egress points.
So site 3,
Yep.
is that entry and egress, or it's just
That's entry.
Just an entry.
Yeah.
So, your worship, through site 3 as an example, I've walked through there, and it's all very good and well that there's stop signs there, but lots of cars don't stop. So if you're trying to enter on that way and the vehicle coming up that you can't see behind the trees just goes straight through, I don't see that was actually addressed.
Through your worship, so compliance with the intersections and the design of the service road wasn't addressed. The previous motion was largely around site distance and obstruction, so we've largely looked at those things. I would say about non-compliance to road rules or stop signs, that would be a SAPOL matter, an enforcement matter. If the arrangements were to change as far as the controls at each intersection, then that's a new design project as far as how vehicles move along the service road.
And that would effectively be a very expensive exercise to
Essentially,
review
yeah.
it.
So if let's say we removed the stop signs, you then need to look at things like sheltered left turns on the main road to get people off the main road, and then we're talking lots of money and lots of impact to that area. So
You have traffic calming at the stop sign, which means they've got to slow down at least.
yeah.
At the moment they can just barrel straight through, which I've seen.
Also, councillor, just a question, possible worship. So the point E isn't totally lost. Would there be the option to bring back a further report to investigate whatever we end up landing for point E?
Do you mean in terms of the distance?
Well, just if we're looking at, obviously tonight we're going, this wasn't part of the initial report and it's coming as an additional item, would it be best that we have a further report that comes back discussing whether it's feasible and all the other issues the director was saying that could result about point E, removal of the foliage between 2 and 3? Can we have a further report that comes back, say, next month, addressing point E, whether it's workable?
Your worship, we could provide a further report,
Explanation?
but I would suspect it would be at a cost, because we'd need to engage traffic engineers to undertake an assessment of those locations. So,
And I would say they've given their report, that this is their recommendation.
Yeah.
So this
So
is
if we go
going
beyond
over
that.
and above that.
How do we know then if we do point E, which I can understand the exact need for it, how do we know what are the other impacts? If we do this, what are the other impacts that could result? Or are we comfortable that it'll be alright?
Through your worship, it's just the 15 metres is hard. And the report recommends vegetation removal, and we're definitely happy to look at removing vegetation in a where it has minimal impacts to the surrounds, where it's largely just mulch already, etc. But it's just the 15 metres. It would be hard to at each site know what impact that would have, not only to the vegetation, but the mounds and how they look. So that's just the risk with that, I guess.
We've got a report. Why don't we go along with the report and see how it works out? All the work's been done apart from the cutting back the vegetation, rather than waste time or spend more money getting further reports. It's all been done for us. Let's go with it.
And that's, I guess, the point and why I'm raising is I don't think the report has covered everything that we needed, and this is a cost-effective result that doesn't mean we need to go back for a further report. It's a common sense. It's not going to be, I don't think, high impact to the people of Medindi that live along there.
The people down the bottom won't be happy, I don't think.
Okay.
So in
Would
that
anyone else
scenario,
like to speak to the motion?
sorry.
Councillor Core.
Yeah, so in that scenario, can we have the traffic lights on? Is it cost effective as well to put the traffic lights on for the traffic?
In each of those locations, I think that
Your worship, no, that would be a highly costly exercise
Massive.
and need a
Massive.
lot of justification and evidence based to support that.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. The biggest concern that I have there, or something that I would like added into the recommendations here, is in 3A. It says at sites 4, 5 and 6. I would definitely like site 3 added into that, and I agree that the site 2 and 3 are the issue. And if it's possible to bring up the report on screen or people have it in front of them. The issue that I have there, and once again I've been to the site and seen as well, is where people turn off of Road Terrace into the slip lane. Sure, they have the sight lines to see the cars. However, the cars that are going along the slip lane don't. So the one that's down on the downhill part, because that's going to be going up the hill to turn left out of site 2, which is only just past site 3, it's travelling slowly. So if you leave the stop sign there travelling slowly and a car whips in from Road Terrace, I see that as being an issue in that they don't have the sight lines similarly to the car that's travelling down the hill, can't see that car coming in at all. Now the car coming in may be able to see, however the reason I've said to add site 3 to 4, 5 and 6 is because you have the pink shaded area there that you're talking about removing the cutting it back and only having ground cover, no plants that grow. I don't see why we can't add site 3 to that. That's a relatively inexpensive change. And not only that, I went back through the reports as well, and the notes I've made to myself are not coming up here now, but I know the traffic report we had in May 2019 as well also identified site 3 as both being, sorry I can't see the words here now because my phone's gone all small and funny in the notes that I keep on here, but here we are. In May 2019 it identified the point 3, the west and the east side, and the wording is very poor sight distance to eastbound traffic obstructed by mound vegetation, and then the distance says no eastbound traffic, and then in the east side it says very poor sight distance to vehicles in channelized right. So in each of those locations I can't see why we wouldn't, which is basically no more expense, at least put point 3 and
Through your worship, yeah, in the pink shaded areas, if we would like to remove vegetation, and that would, they're quite small areas and the site restrictions, and it would prevent vegetation, even ground covers, potentially getting to that 1 metre site. It's just when we start expanding upon that, it's hard to stop. Where do we start and stop with the vegetation removal? So
you're excluded from that area. And the only other question I had for Councillor Allinson too was in his point E that he's got, foliage. Can you just explain or verbalise what you mean by that? Because to me foliage says probably branches that are hanging down that are going to block your sight.
Yep.
But to someone else foliage could mean something completely different.
Yeah, predominantly it's for those bush type, I guess, plants that will begin to grow up. You know, they're up to
mostly
50
rosemary,
cents.
isn't it?
There's a lot of rosemary,
cactus and things as well. So
rosemary was definitely an issue, but there's one that surrounds that you can't see on site 3, which is the particular bush that's about chest height that I have issue with. It's not in any of the photos, but that blocks all the sight lines. and it's about 50 centimetres high. I don't actually know what the plant is, I guess we don't have any further problems if there's no foliage there. I'm not saying grass is an issue, but things that are growing up have repetitively, I guess, to cut down on maintenance when they're not there as well. So.
That plant you're talking about, I believe, is in that pink shaded area in site 3 or zone 3.
No, it would be below the car. If you've got the map up, I can point to it on page 73.
Okay, I'm going to try and, given the time, pull us back into meeting procedures. So, other than to say, I think item B needs to be amended because it doesn't cover all of the sign relocation required as set out in the report. The report says sites 3, 4, 5 and 6 should have signing relocated.
Yep, that's correct.
3, 4, 5 and 6. And at C, the ensure any vegetation replanted within these sightline zones. So that is all zones. Is my reading of the report. All sightline zones in all sites. Yep. So, Councillor Allenson, are you okay with that change?
Fine with that change to C and B. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have?
So, sorry, just through the chair to clarify, so in point 3A, it's the addition of site 3 to 4, 5 and 6. Point B, we've done 3, 4, 5 and 6.
Yes.
Point C, we did all sites. And then point E, just through the chair, I've done removal of all foliage in brackets plants with vertical height for that clarification purpose. Are we happy with that, Councillor Allenson?
Yeah, not trees that are already established there.
Yeah. Is there a better way?
So sorry, established trees are staying, or established trees are staying?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of those are largely just the middle of the trunk that goes all the way up. We're not removing trees.
How about we just run,
We drive on the video.
Okay.
if we just put a limit on it, like for, you could say higher than, I don't know, 5 inches or something. And that way, Gaston removes all agapanthus and everything anyway, at least that way you make the skies.
Yeah, through your worship, ground covers essentially. I mean, they don't have a set height, but anything that isn't going to be at risk of growing to that 1.1 standard, 1 metre height standard, would be a guideline, because if you pick heights, it sort of depends on the shape of the mound and things like that. But yeah, essentially removal, I would say vegetation is what the standards say.
That's probably a better way.
But my only query is just over the 15 metres, without actually marking it out on site and having it on a plan, like what does the 15 metres look like? Because unfortunately we just haven't tabled that idea tonight, so that's just my only query.
Could you add where possible after that? Because then it's a bit, if you're saying...
Why can't we just leave it out?
Okay, this is the motion. Is there a seconder for this motion?
I'll test the floor and go for it. I'll second it.
Thank you,
So
Councillor.
I need to, I'll agree with James Kelly on this. Where does the 15 metres start from? I think we just need to have some clarity on that, because it is unfair on the field team to actually, respond to this if there's not a little bit of clarity. I'm supportive of the motion. If we just say from the curb, or if we just, I don't know, it's up to, I'm just going to make sure it's clear.
And it can be where possible as well.
Yeah.
There's something that is relevant.
Yeah.
That's
That one.
why I tried to add the word where
Plants with
possible.
vertical height is meaningless. Every living plant has vertical height. It mightn't be much, but it's got it.
Fungus has more vertical height than others.
That's why I was trying
So much
to...
all vegetation. You almost have, through the chair, you almost have to say all vegetation and take out the plant with vertical height if you're to move that.
I'll just say,
And look, that includes the lawn too.
Just say you remove vegetation above a certain height, like it can be a small height, but at least you still, because you're going to get some weeds, and you're going to get some lawn,
What about
like natural
grass?
lawn.
Do you put exclusion with that, with the trees? I don't know.
Excluding trees and grass.
Why can't we say remove all vegetation exceeding in height, 3 centimetres,
Yeah,
5 centimetres,
agreed.
something like that?
Agree.
Yeah, sounds good.
Through your worship, sorry to keep banging on that. It's just hard, like, to monitor that and manage that.
Make it higher, so
But then you sort of like, well, the standards say 1.1 metres, so it's sort of that's the guideline. It's really 0 to 1.1 is just a big area of grey, and it would be unreasonable for our field staff to manage to it.
To measure.
You know, yeah, and measure and manage to that height. So
okay. So my understanding of this was to remove all, like even ground cover. As ground cover does grow up, I was thinking that you just want to sort of clear those spaces to natural, whether it's mulch or something, or and then you place a small height restriction, because you are going to get some weed growth, but our the field team should be out there doing their regular maintenance anyhow. And obviously weeds don't have the girth or the width of them, it's going to cause an issue anyway. It's more, I think, picking up on this, it was from Councillor Allenson, it's more the agapanthus and those real broad sort of bushes and the rosemary or whatever it was that you can't see through. So I think we just need to not get too carried away. We just need to say that you clearly just state that it's mulch or whatever you want to say, removal of it, and that up to a certain distance, and then for maintenance to carry on with weed removal, whatever it might be.
And even after all certain sites where able and reasonable.
No, sorry, just to, so we've got between sites 2 and 3,
And then
but then all 7 sites. So what are we talking about?
So no vegetation on that one, on between 2 and 3.
So what about the other sites?
Actually, that actually is now covered with the addition of what Councillor Williams has said. So between sites 2 and 3 can now be removed.
Okay, the height. $10 centimetres, 15 centimetres.
James?
Your Worship, I think we need to let James Kelly have a look at it and come back to us with it. It's just...
through your worship, I think that may be the sensible approach. I think we've gone against the standards, which is 1.1 metres. We've thrown some arbitrary sort of figures around. I think, unfortunately, we'll need to bring an extra report looking back at, or looking specifically into site 3. It's just there's too many areas of grey here in
But
particular.
can't we do the report? We don't have to go back to the traffic.
No, so, yeah, we can do an assessment and see what 10, 15, 20 metres, and come back to council.
We get the report coming back.
Yeah, I'll be very
Just too
comfortable
hard.
with
Yeah. Yep, that's fair.
that. That's hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the motion?
So bring back a report analysing the possibility of the removal of all vegetation.
Yep.
That's why initially I was asking for a report to come back, if that would be possible, because
Well, is it about recommending a height? Not the possibility of it?
No, it's recommending the height to the other to the A, B, C, D, E. Isn't that correct?
Be height and distance.
And this report comes back tomorrow.
We want a date on the report to feel comfortable. Just bring back it unless it is a month. It be a problem. 2 months.
It is just looking at the vegetation within a 15 metre length distance. Then we can look at that and provide photos and do that, because the actual site distance check's been done tonight. So as a tabling it. So if we're just purely looking at what vegetation's there and what can't be removed or maintained, then yeah, that's what we'll look at.
Okay, so
do we have
March,
to
I think it's March, council meeting analysing recommending the height and distance for removal of vegetation. Okay. Councillor
Yep.
Olsen, you happy with that amendment? Who was the seconder?
We had
Councillor Rick,
Happy
you
with
happy with that? Okay, I'm going to put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Okay, the next item is the establishment of a Section 41 committee being a sustainability committee. There's a couple of aspects to this. One is looking at the terms of reference of the committee. The other is appointing elected members to the committee.
Your Worship, I should point out that as at closing nominations today, we had 4 nominees, self-nominees. Yourself, also considering the ex officio appointment, should that be required, Councillor John Zeppel, Councillor James Williams and Councillor Mark Hall. So ultimately, excuse me, the positions have been filled for the committee.
Okay, so just regarding the terms of reference, I think there are a few changes required to it. One is that I would like to include in there that the mayor is an ex officio member of the committee. So should there be another member that wishes to be appointed to the committee, then there can be. At 4.2, the membership of the committee currently says that members of the committee will hold office for a period of time as determined by the council. I'm proposing that that is changed to a period of 2 years.
That speaks.
There are some terminology changes. There's some references to the chief executive officer in this, which I think should be references to the committee executive officer. Because I think that's, you've got a committee person.
Correct, we have an executive officer.
And when there's reference in item 8.4 to the deputy mayor, I think that should be to the deputy presiding member. And then the other thing I'd like to point out is that initially I had envisaged this being inclusive of economic sustainability, not just environmental and social sustainability. And with regard to economic sustainability, that meant looking at strategic projects that the council sees as a priority and a focus for spending money. Could include things like looking at Tour Down Under, if that's an event that we'd like to look at, economic development in the township. So that is something that I would like to see as part of this committee as well. But that is, for discussion. And I think on that note, we might just suspend standing orders for a short period of time just to talk about that. So
9:40.
let's go to 9:35. Are you in favour of that? Thank you. Would anyone else have any comments on the terms of reference?
You can just pull up, sorry, scroll down to the suggested change.
Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Only that sometimes in the past with committees like this, the terms of reference have gone back to the committee, and the committee has then reviewed the terms of reference that council has sent to it, and then considered if there's any changes that it might like to make, and then send those suggestions or changes back to council for council to then decide. The only thing I was going to suggest was whether it would be worth us putting that in so that at the first meeting, one of the agenda items is also that the committee reviews its terms of reference and make a recommendation
Council Secretary, could I just ask, just on that point, Councillor Williams, can you just scroll down? I'm not sure. The following the first workshop and meeting of Sustainability Committee and a subsequent report. Okay, we can include, would you be happy to include that, the review of the terms of reference in that specific section?
Yeah, that'd be fine, so long as we cover it, because really, otherwise it's council telling the committee its terms of reference, where the committee may have other ideas on how things should operate, and it can then make a recommendation back to council, and council can choose to accept it or reject it. So
Then-
I would say at its first meeting.
Yeah.
It's important that it's at its first meeting.
Councillor Ninky?
Just so we don't lose everything that Mayor put up, is that at risk of being lost then? Or do we just put that the committee considers these points?
I think that's exactly the course of action, Councillor Ninky.
Yeah, so we don't lose it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So through the chair, I could move the consideration for the committee of the below amendments to point 5, and then that way the committee would consider them as part of their terms of reference review.
Yep.
Sorry.
So point 2 will have it removed then?
Yes, what I'll do is
Won't read them all. Councillor
So are we adopting the terms of reference now?
I believe so.
Correct.
Through the acting CEO. So we will adopt the terms of reference just to have a terms of reference so that the committee can meet, and then they can review it and bring it back into the chamber for council.
That's fine.
And Your Worship, when we submit the terms of reference to the committee, we will have those amendments track changed on the draft document for the committee's reference.
So can I also just understand, so obviously we adopt the current terms of reference, the committee then reviews them, reports back to council, and then it will be council's decision whether they accept or reject the amended terms of reference?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah. I'm happy with that.
Comfortable with that.
Okay, right, we might just get a mover then for the motion. Councillor Sippel, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Call, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Item 14.3.6 regarding a community fund application from Charlize Green. So, Charlize has requested amount.
So through the chair, there's no requested amount.
Oh, there's no requested amount. Okay, so we need to decide. So historically, we've given $250.
Is that $250 to each of the applications, or is it
Yes.
case by case?
Your Worship, Councillor, case by case basis.
Yeah.
But as a general rule of thumb, over the last 6 to 9 months, it has been a set amount of $250, but that is at council's discretion.
Sure.
Okay. So $250 is in there. We have a mover.
Yeah,
Councillor Vanstone, seconder. Councillor Trotter, I think it was. Okay. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried.
Great opportunity for
And 14.3.7 regarding an application, community fund application from the Rotary Club of Walkerville, who are seeking an abatement of hiring and security fees of $886.40.
Your Worship, if I can just interject here, we found out today via correspondence that the date change has changed from the 5th to the 26th. So the minutes will reflect the change in date as opposed to the report itself.
Okay.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Yep. It's Councillor Trotter. All those in favour? Thank you. Yep, carried. Subsidiaries, nothing to report. So, identification of items for individual consideration. So, monthly works report. Is anyone, yes, okay. Monthly financial report. Decisions of the council assessment panels. Transport strategy update. I do have something on that. Error Water Board meeting minutes. Outstanding council resolutions and actions. Okay, so do we have a mover to move those items 16.3.2, 3.3, 4.1 and 4.5? Thank you, Councillor Williams. Seconder, Councillor Zeppel. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. So, going back to item 16.3.1, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Just a question to James Hill. Just something that's been brought up by a couple of members of the community with me regarding Alfred Street. And it's just forwarding this on, I see that there's the 2 one-way signs off Walkerville Terrace. I don't miss them, but a couple of people have mentioned to me it would be good to have an arrow painted on the ground at the entry, and I thought, I don't miss them, but each time I go past I look and I think, yeah, well, maybe they've got a point. And perhaps if you've got the in arrow on the ground on Walkerville Terrace, on the flip side, you'll have an out.
Through your worship, yeah. So we have noticed some, because it's the new arrangement's fairly new. We have noticed some non-compliance with the one-way arrangements. So particularly down the Warwick Street end, looking at maybe a no entry or a line marked guide to say to come in from Walkerville Terrace. So we can take that on notice and investigate that. But that should be covered in operational line marking as part of the project.
You've probably noticed the same cars that have been coming in from the Warwick Street end and parking with their nose facing the wrong direction, which obviously when they're pulling out is going to create an issue.
Yep.
So
no, that should be easily fixed.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder to that? Moving this monthly works report. Thank you, Councillor Vanstone. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 16.3.4. James, don't ring me.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Just in terms of the transport strategy update and looking at a resolution that's on the books, which is resolution 336 of 21/22, which talks about following the local government general elections, the incoming council further considers the fees and charges for residential parking permits as part of the township parking and transport strategy. So how will that be brought into the consultation?
Through your worship, so as we discussed earlier with the 40k an hour discussion, so it's an issues and opportunities survey. So if parking permits come up, there's categories around parking, speeding, things like that. So if that is documented as part of the issues and opportunities that the community would like to see addressed, and then that's workshop with council, and then we move into stage 2 as far as what's the action plan. So if that's reviewing parking permit fee structures and parking permit policies, then that's part of that process. But essentially we're just collecting all the traffic concerns across the township.
Okay, so it's not going to be specifically called out like the 40 kilometre zone as one of the things that we're
No, so
about.
that was raised tonight with the 40 kilometre an hour zone. So essentially it would be up to those people who may have concerns around the parking permit structure. There's a flexible survey that people can provide written feedback as well as answer specific questions. So yeah, it would have to come out as part of the issues that are raised from the community.
Yeah, okay. Just... Okay. Right, will someone move the transport strategy update report? Councillor Carlson, thank you. Second it. Councillor Trotter, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Yep, carried. Okay. Confidential items. So first of all, we will move to go into confidence. So to discuss item 19.1, mover. Thank you, Councillor Zeppel. Seconder, Councillor Core. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's Okay, so moving on to item 19.2 regarding CEO recruitment process. We'll again move the meeting into confidence, and the motion is there. So everyone other than acting CEO and council secretariat to leave the room. Sarah mover.
Move that way.
Councillor Rip seconder.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Vanstone.
Sorry.
Does anyone wish to speak to that motion?
Yeah, Mayor
10:38 PM, the meeting moved out of confidence. Now, I know there's nothing on the agenda for any other business, but I was hoping to have a quick discussion in any other business with the consent of the meeting. Hopefully it won't take too long. Is that all right with everyone? Obviously the YMCA has moved from that building. They went to another building at Mega Courts. They got moved from that building to base camp, but they've been told to leave base camp at short notice. So basically at the beginning of this year there were 600 kids that were enrolled at the YMCA at base camp and they don't have a home. I would like to see that they're desperate for a place to hold their gymnastics classes, whether that could be temporary facilities basically. I know that there's lots of school halls and church halls and whatever else available in Walkerville, and I'd like to see if the administration would write to the school halls and churches and whoever else we can find that's appropriate in Walkerville or close to Walkerville to see if they are able to assist the YMCA in a temporary home. I've received lots of communications from the public and I'm sure you have too. Some of these basically are just talking about, you know, the huge health burden that this is put on children to have the gymnastics classes taken away at very short notice, and verbatim here, seems awful that literally hundreds of kids have no option to do gymnastics and other types of sport that the YMCA offered. These are sports that help these kids not just physically but mentally too. And another one was, I don't mean to be harsh, but really this needs to be sorted for our children, and we now have what I can only describe as a crisis around our gymnastics club. So obviously we're going to be discussing on Monday further about the major projects, but in the meantime I was hoping that council would support doing what we can to help the YMCA in their gymnastics.
Just in saying that, unless you've sent something and I've missed it, and I apologise if that's the case, have we seen copies of that correspondence that you've received, or was that mainly phone calls from them?
The emails to me.
Alright. I'm just thinking, as we haven't seen them yet, that's the only thing to see. So they'll move basically from where's base camp for them at the moment, where they were kicked out?
They were at Mega Courts for 2 years. Mega Courts is being redeveloped.
That's
so they had to
the Gardens. I don't know where base camp is, but I've heard
base camp's at Kilburn.
Yeah.
And what I understand is there was a change of ownership or something at base camp, and so the new management didn't want them to come in and use the facility. So at the beginning of term effectively. So they were just, that's it, program's cancelled.
Right.
Yeah, I know quite a few families have got young, I shouldn't say it, but generally young daughters, that they, it is a bit sad that these kids haven't got anywhere to go. I'm comfortable with, there's only a letter asking them. The schools can always, they can say no, but it'd be nice to show some support for some of the, families and whatnot. I know you're going to go through it on Monday, but where is that project at with the announcement? Because it'd be a great opportunity. I mean, it's a set up gymnasium in there. It's got a floor and a pit and everything. It's made for this. It just seems crazy that no one can use it. So
yeah, through your worship, Councillor Nanki, I will reserve any comment or update on that until Monday night, because there's a lot of information to go through. But I definitely take your point. It is a building that is made for that type of activity. Noting that there are a couple of council resolutions on the book that preclude that site from being used again until such time that areas of concern are remediated. But I have absolutely no issue with the mayor's request to make contact with schools, churches.
And churches instead of...
Yeah, well I mean...
No, because it says all churches. Do you want to change it to and?
Oh, geez. And as many as possible. Anyone.
If it's just facilitating, I would have no issue if the staff are happy with it and it's just facilitating potential need short-term.
Councillor and your worship, I'd be more than happy to make contact with the adjacent CEOs as well to see if they have anything in very close proximity.
Yeah.
Just reading through that, I don't have a problem with it, but I'll just pose one thing. Is it, and as I said, I don't have a problem with it, but wouldn't it also be the YMCA writing to those organisations as well?
I'm sure they are
and
reaching
then,
out as
and
well.
council supporting what they've written.
Yeah, and in
Actually,
fact, we
that's
should
fair.
probably let the YMCA know that we are
That was the only thing I
trying to help them.
Or maybe the administration provide a letter of support to the YMCA if they're going to approach it. If we don't know if they're
But equally, Scott, checking with.
connections that you
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have connections to the local schools, and
Yeah.
like I know the Walkerville Primary School has got a massive gym there, and
It's
probably
probably,
Vale Park's got a huge gym.
it's probably if their students actually are members of,
Oh yeah, definitely.
So how many people? So do they have any idea?
Oh, total 600,
600.
but not all at one time. So it's like, I don't know, 30 in a class or something.
I guess the question, following on what Councillor Williams has said, are we writing a letter to them to liaise with YMCA, or are we providing a letter of support to the YMCA to use when they approach? I guess there's
I was envisaging
Yep.
council writing to the schools and the churches to say
and putting them in
the
touch.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have been contacted by the YMCA seeking a location. Unfortunately, council at this present time do not have any facilities to accommodate that. However, we are reaching out to the schools, the churches to see if
Fine,
there's any
I'm happy with that.
facilitate.
Is that
So we're advocating
Park
on
or-
that.
Advocating, yeah.
That includes Vale Park Primary as
That
well.
will, yes.
Yeah, yep, St Monica's, all the schools. Right.
But, if it, with this though, is there, not to get into a Monday night, but is there any scope that we could,
Let's cover that Monday night.
Yeah.
no, but if we're gonna send this letter out, then we end up finding an opportunity, is there a point in sending the letter out?
Councillor Lanky, I think it would be beneficial to get this letter out and then we can discuss it Monday night.
RSL.
Yeah, RSL.
The ATCO huts at the
Bowls
depot.
Club.
So I can change it to schools, churches and community groups.
Norman would be happy to have people in the RSL so long as we get the 13-year-olds drinking.
Time frame,
Sorry, I forgot I was in camera.
when, can we do that this week?
Your worship, I can have this letter out by the end of the week. I'm never, if I'm not here, I'm still working. It's the nature of the beast.
What, there's overtime?
My hourly rate is about $2.50.
Okay, mover, councillor Trotter, seconder, councillor Core, thank you, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, any other urgent business? I doubt it. I'll declare the meeting closed at 10:47.
And there's a record for it.
I knew it was going to be long, I didn't think it was going to be that long.